Okay guys, so today's lesson is what we call constructions. And one side note, if you are unable to print this packet, then on your own paper, what I'm going to suggest when it says like to try things or to turn in an assignment, I would just draw something very similar using like a ruler or something straight edge, and then also show like your construction work, right? So if you're like, but I can't print this, great, just take this, draw a little straight line, draw this, label it A and B, follow along, like that kind of thing. What we are experiencing with constructions, it's a little bit going back to like old school geometry. By old school, I mean like back in the day geometry, like how did they build like pyramids and how did they do a lot of architecture work back in the day when they didn't have fancy equipment and fancy tools that could perfectly lay things out and exactly cut them and size them before they got there. So the compass tool, that's again the little thing, it basically has like a stabby end and one end that basically has your pencil in it, and you usually stick the stabby end down and like draw circles, right? If you've never just played with one and you've got yours, I would just go to a blank sheet of paper, stick the stabby end down and just practice drawing some circles, see how it goes. I personally find that sometimes I have better luck if I take my sheet of paper and I just put the stabby side down, put the pencil lightly on the paper, and I actually hold really stiff the stabby part and twisting the paper. I find sometimes that's more successful than trying to like move this and like the pencil slips or the point slips. But I would, before you do anything that's this related, just practice sketching a couple of circles and just get used to using that tool. Like that's what I would make the students do in class. All right, so I'm gonna attempt to explain like these rudimentary old tools. And I need to get it, you're like, whoa, are you saying people back in the old days had just a giant one of these tools? No, but they basically had a pole and a long length of rope or string and another pole. And so using a compass is kind of us mimicking a sturdy pole on the ground. It opens up to a specific length, and then the other person would have the motion. It would be able to kind of mark these things in the dirt so they could plan. Okay, so construction number one is how do I copy a segment? And we're pretending that I don't have a ruler. I'm like, oh, it looks about 6.2 inches, 6.2 inches. Great, I know you can do that. We're pretending that I was trying to copy like this length of this building, and I needed to go put the other length of the building over here, and I needed that to be the same size. I can't just like ruler that. So what they would generally do, and this is you on your paper trying to copy this segment, you're gonna draw a point, you are going to take your ruler, basically following these instructions, and you're going to sketch a line that is visibly, clearly longer than what you need. So if I could tell this is this long, we're gonna extend it like at least past that using a straight line. The compass tool basically in this case gets used like a ruler. So what it's going to look like is you're gonna put I'm gonna use the black pen here, if you can even tell this is my stabby side, and I'll use the red, if that shows up, as like my pencil side. So you basically take your compass and you open it up so the stabby side is on one end and it opens all the way up to reach here. And if you wanted to, you could kind of like sketch, and you'll notice like it kind of sketches like a little bit of an arc right at that length. Well, now we walk over here without changing this opening, stab, and kind of sketch it in place. Now again, I'm clearly not holding something big enough. Let's see, I might try to just do something else. Let's say this is a little bit shorter, so maybe I can show you. So here's the one I want to copy. I make my point, I draw it longer. I basically take the open thing, stabby, and I kind of can practice whooshing that without changing this opening, come over here and whooshy that. And then I can highlight this, and in theory, I would erase this. But part of like us seeing that you did this correct as your teacher, I don't want you to erase stuff. I want to just see the starting and ending points, and it should clearly match. Okay, so again, if I were trying to copy EF, I would make a point, draw a line that's way longer, stab and open my thing until the pencil's exactly on this point, and you can kind of, like I said, whoosh, like make a partial circle, make sure it's hitting where you want, come over here without changing that, and do the same thing. That would copy that segment, right? So just some places to practice that. The next thing that I'm going to actually do is skip. So this is construction number one. I'm going to skip past the angle and go to the second construction that also deals with a segment. So I like doing the two segments together. This one, the goal is to bisect or cut this segment perfectly in half. And again, We're not just gonna eyeball it and go, it looks like about here. Because I agree, on something this size, I can eyeball it and do that. But how do I find the exact cut in half of a long building? I can't just be like, looks about here. Like I'm gonna be way more off the bigger something is. So how did they do this? So what we end up doing, the main point here, is you're gonna open the compass to what is clearly more than half of the length, right? So you're eyeballing it's here, you should open your compass to be anything bigger than that. I'm just have to be like all over here. So let's say like if here's about where the middle is, if I spread my hands really wide as my fingers will go, this is my stabby part, this is my pencil, that is definitely more than half of this distance. So what they would do is they would open that up, and at this point we're not gonna change this opening. Just whatever the opening is, stab it into A, and how like last time we made that little whooshy mark, only this time you're gonna make that whooshy mark like, you could do the whole circle if you want, but I really just need it to be about this half circle. Without changing the opening, you come over here and now you put the stabby side on the other end point and you draw the other half circle, right? So it's kind of hard for me to do on a smartboard. It's easier to show you this in class, I promise. But when you do that, if you've done it perfectly, this would not look cattywampus. Like this would actually look very straight up and down. Like so this point here where they cross and this point here where they cross, if you take your ruler and connect them, this will always be the exact middle. Like I said right here, that's not quite looking like that, but that's because I'm trying to use my hand on the smartboard instead of a proper tool. So again, just to show you a quick example of that, if I want to cut this in half, I open up the compass to any length bigger than halfway, and so I'm basically sketching that half circle using the compass. Come over here, sketch the same half circle using just switching which side the stabby point is, and these two intersections you connect. That is the midpoint, okay? You will notice as you practice this that it will happen to also always be a perfect 90-degree connection. Not the goal of what this is asking you to do. The goal is to chop it in half. It just happens to also do that, and that is another vocab word we could touch on later. But the biggest mistake students make on this one is they don't draw their half circle enough to see this intersection, right? So if I only did my compass like a shorter distance, you would get these two half circles and notice they don't overlap. Like that would be a problem. Or, like I said, they do have it big enough, but they just do like this amount of it and then the other amount of it, and they don't see the crossing point. So you definitely need to do like a full half circle amount. Okay, so again, practice that, otherwise jump on a Zoom call tomorrow and ask me about it. Now I want to go back and talk about the angle. So this is actually like the real construction number 2 in the notes, and the goal is to copy an angle. Okay, copying an angle is a little more interesting because basically what I mean by copy the angle is I want you to copy how open it is. I don't necessarily care that these segments are the same length. If I really wanted to, I could do that, but an angle is focusing on the opening. So how could I get the same opening in old school geometry when all I have is a stick, a string, and a stick, which is what I'm representing with this compass. So what I ask you to normally do is put an endpoint and just draw one straight line out. Like that's all I'm gonna ask. What you then do, and again, these instructions are kind of here already. It says use a straight edge to draw a line. With a compass point at here, draw an arc that intersects this angle at these two random points. Okay, so here's what this means. You could pick any distance that's not longer than these two lines. So you just open your compass to an amount and you're going to hold this distance. So once you stab it, you're basically going to like make this archy whoosh. You then come over here without changing it and make an archy whoosh. This arc must be big enough to at least cover this opening. So if I was trying to do this obtuse angle over here, by golly, I better make this all the way beyond what I think I'm going to need, right? So you can do just what you think you need or like as much as you think you need. But the fact that you did not change the opening is key here for the next step. So the next step then says, take these 2 points, because one of them is going to be this point here. How do I find this other point along this edge? Because right now it could be literally anywhere, and I'm not just trying to eyeball it. So here's where we take that same compass, only now we are going to purposely change the size, almost like using the compass as a ruler. We're going to, doesn't matter which way, but I tend to put my stabby point here, and I literally slowly close my compass until it's perfectly this size. And then I walk over here with my hand on here and mark that off using that compass. That point, when I connect it, this opening will perfectly match. Okay, so let me again just sort of sketch what all happened there, just like try to walk you through step by step and then do like one more time. So we start by, let's say this is the angle I want to copy. So I'm going to start by taking a point and drawing a straight line as far as I want. I'm going to then take my compass to any size I want and sketch this arc length. Okay, sketch that part of the circle. Then without changing it, I come over here and give myself sort of the same arc length that opens at least as far as this when I glance at it. At that point, I can choose to highlight these 2 points if I would like. You are going to use your compass and specifically close it until your stabby point is here and the pencil is exactly there. And you're going to come over here and mark where that happens using the same stabby point to see where that crossed. You then connect those with a ruler and you have copied that angle. Okay? So we have seen copy a segment, then we saw cut a segment in half. Here we have copied an angle. Now the last one, if you skip to where it says number 4, we're going to bisect or cut in half an angle. I'm going to read the instructions on this one because this is always the one I go like, wait, how did they do that? And then I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool, got it. So this time the goal is to cut this in half. So I don't need to recreate it. I need to find the exact middle. And again, we're not just trying to eyeball it and go like, oh, what's about there, right? That's not how we're cutting these in half. If this were a test and you were using a compass, or if we give you pictures of diagrams that show different markings people had made, you'd have to pick, did they make the right markings? Okay, so that's kind of how we're going to do that this year with a lot of stuff online. So place the compass on the vertex and draw an arc that intersects both of these. So it's kind of like the same step from last time. We're going to open it to any distance I want and just mark it off. Okay, so this is me using my compass to mark that off. It then says, and I believe here we don't need to change the setting, because it says place that and mark that off. Okay, cool. And it says go ahead and highlight those 2 points. So I'm going to mark those 2 points off. And then place the compass point on C and draw an arc. Okay, so this is almost like we're going to bisect this segment. I know it's like curved, so this is not technically a segment, but it's almost like that. So again, I haven't changed my compass yet. But remember when we bisected a segment, we took it and we kind of did that half whooshy arc and then the other half whooshy arc from these 2 points, and that helped chop that in half. We're going to kind of do that from here. So with that same opening, I'm going to take this and I'm trying to make that half circle in this general area, and then from this point, do the same sort of thing. So again, to recap the 3 different curves that you see, I opened it up to any distance I randomly chose and marked it enough to get these 2 points, and I marked them. Then I went to those points and marked a new half circle. And this one, I marked that half circle. So all of these are using the same opening. Mark this one here, and then those 2 points you just created, mark these half circles. And as long as you did it enough that you can find where they intersect, just like with the segment, you had to do enough to see their intersections. If you connect those with a ruler, that will be perfectly in half. And again, it might not look perfectly in half because I'm like using my finger to try to sketch this. Okay, that's generally the idea. So let me show you that one more time. I'll do it more on an obtuse shaped one. So again, open my compass to any length I want and stabby point down. I try to mark this as best as I can. Again, this is about as perfect as I'm going to get and try to keep that same size. Not changing this, we have these 2 points. I'm going to need to sketch where they can overlap. So it looks like they're more likely going to overlap. Like if I try to sketch, let me use a different color. So if I try to sketch this here, and come over here and do the same thing, they actually kind of miss each other. Oh, you know what? I actually remembered. For this, it's not a requirement to use the same length when you make this one as when you make this one. It just happened to work here because it, rewind. So all I'm saying here is, yes, any size you want here. And at this point, when you come up to these, you can use a new size, but these two must use the same size. Like, that's the key point. So like with the segment, it didn't matter what size I chose to chop it in half. When I go to chop this in half, at this point, I don't care what size it is, but they have to be the same when I do it from here. So I'm gonna change colors without deleting this, right? So I used a size and did this. So now if I were to use a more open size, then I could sketch from the one, use that same one to sketch the other one. And if I've done that all beautifully, where those cross, and this would be cutting that in half. Yeah, so I'm sorry. Because of that little so I'm just gonna quickly one more time on this one. So any length you want, open this up. Highlight these points. Your choice. You can rechange the setting, but probably something more long is better because we just observe here, if it's too short, it's like T-Rex arms and they don't reach. So longer opening is probably preferred here. So I'm gonna stretch my fingers as far as they will go and stabby point on each of these points and kind of make these two arcs. Stabby point here, make this arc. That intersection connected with this one will perfectly cut this angle in half. Okay? So you'll notice there's some ones to like practice, of course, on each page. As soon as you get past this one, now it actually says problems. These are the problems that you need to do. So if you don't have your own paper, you're gonna write problem number 1. You're gonna just draw a random length for me, EF, on your paper, and then also practice doing it. So what I should see for this answer, I should see, well, actually, I don't know where that endpoint is. I should see you putting your point. I should see a long sketched line. I should observe the whooshes from your, you know, when you like saw how long this one, like that whoosh, and of course this would be one over here, and then your point. Like, I don't want you to erase and just give me that copied one, because anybody can find a different way to do that, right? So if this is the segment I'm copying, I should see right here that you drew this longer. I should see like the whoosh mark that you used to measure this, and I should see that whoosh mark here. Like, that's kind of what I would be expecting to see on this paper, okay? So if you were like, well, once we add these 3 together, one of the first steps is to make an extremely long line, and basically one at a time go, okay, whoop, okay, how long is this one? Whoop, how long is that one? Whoop, and then the total would be there. But because if you don't have a printer, then just make 3 randomly different length lines, and then your work should show about there, right? So I'm trying to do you a favor if you can't print. That is it. So I'll kind of post this on Canvas anyway, but your homework is basically to do that packet, and tomorrow is going to just be a work day. So that would be to continue finishing these constructions, or to jump on call and be like, hey, I need some help. Let me try to talk you through it over the Zoom call. It's also to give you a day to just work on the chapter worksheet. That would be a great day to jump on call and ask about any confusions you have on some of the problems, because the very next day is the chapter worksheet quiz, which means you're going to be uploading all of your work, and you're going to be taking a 5-question quiz that all come from the chapter worksheet, right? I'm gonna randomly pick them. I'm changing the numbers on them. So if you really know how to do all of that, you should be able to go in and take those 5 questions without too much trouble. So if there's something that's bothering you, you're like, I don't know if I got that right, you wanna jump on call and talk about it, right? So just having a perfectly copied set of answers from somebody who thinks they know what they did might be a good thing to kind of check that you know what you're doing, but you're gonna have to take a quick quiz on that. So that's all I'm gonna say, because this video is gonna run a little long, but I just wanna let you know that there's nothing new to do tomorrow, and then Thursday is take the chapter worksheet quiz and continue studying. So we have covered all content for the test as of right now. All right, guys, good luck, have a good day.